So
Crazy.
What?
got it.
I'm going to record this quick just so we can, speaking of listing, I mean, so Nate, I do want to hear about your week when it comes to a listing and a seller being happy and setting those expectations. It's really on us to set those expectations that you don't need 20 offers to make a seller feel like it was a success.
Yep.
And it's literally because of us if they feel like it's a success or not. Like I could be telling them, yeah, you know, we only got one offer, I guess we might as well take it. Or I can tell them from the beginning, all we care about is one solid offer. I don't care how many we get. I just want one solid offer. That means we priced it correctly. Like anytime you get a solid offer for list price or a little bit more, you know, like you can be happy at the end of the day that you know that you priced that house so perfectly for the seller and for the market. And that's why, like, Nate, I know you talked about doing comps, and granted, don't trust me, you know, do your own comps, but like looking into that, there's so many variables, and comping scared me like, oh, what is that? There's so many variables, especially on a property like that. I mean, it is not easy to price a hobby farm in Jefferson, Wisconsin. It's just all over the board. So like, where do you start? So when I did the research on that, I looked at, you start small and you go bigger and you try to get an idea of the story that the market's telling and what's happening, how quickly things are selling, how people feel about acreage. Like I try to think like, what are the big things that bring people to this house? And for this house, it's acreage, right? If this house was sitting on a half acre, it wouldn't even begin to be the property that it is. So what I looked at was 3 to 5 acre hobby farms. Like that's where I really paid attention to. And I paid a lot less attention to the house because the house doesn't really matter when it comes to properties like this. Like, of course it does, right? If it was a dump, we would not be pricing it the way we would. We'd probably be pricing it at like $399. But I looked at, you know, there's some 3 to 5 acre hobby farms that have freaking mansions on them with a pool and, you know, very updated HGTV. This isn't that, but it's farmhouse, but it's not total farmhouse because the rooms aren't tiny like a standard farmhouse because it's been updated back in the 90s. So it was very interesting. And that's what I want to actually show you guys pricing today, particularly if you have something complicated. We can look at a couple if we want to, and just how, when we're looking at pricing a home, it's never our opinion ever. And that's anytime a seller says to you like, well, what do you think? Well, it's really not what I think. What I do is I research the market and I look at the story the market is telling and I interpret data. I do not decide what your list price is. You seller, at the end of the day, you decide what your list price is. What I'm here for is to give you data and tell you more psychologically what's going to happen if you price it correctly, too low, too high, and what's going to happen. And that's why I think people really get hung up on, because a seller will ask very specific questions like, how much more money will I get if I update my kitchen? And sometimes that can be kind of an intimidating question because you're like, oh my gosh, I don't know. Well, where you start with that is you look at what is their house. If you look at their house and the idea of their house, what does that house sell for in a non-updated version? And what does it sell for when it looks updated and has that updated kitchen? What is that difference? Maybe homes are selling for $299-ish, maybe low 300s when they're super, super updated in this neighborhood, and they're selling in like mid 250s if they're not updated. That's where you get that idea. So it's not as hard as it seems. And I think people really get hung up on that. Well, as a listing agent, I don't know what to tell them to do and what not to do, or where to put their dollars to get the most money out of the home. And I think you do know already. You know, because you've been in these homes and you can look at the market, you can look at the data and say, well, what are homes selling for when they have this, this, and this? And what are they selling for when they have this, this, and this? And really, I mean, Nate, hopefully seeing Hilltop helped you learn kind of where to put dollars and where not to put dollars. For example, Aaron called me and asked me why we didn't do the laundry room. Well, why doesn't the laundry room look like a laundry room? And I said, well, Aaron, I know how much it's going to cost just to pay Bill for 2 days worth of work plus material. You're going to be at a couple $1,000 I don't think you're going to get $3 to $5 back per dollar. I don't think you're going to get 10 grand back by having the laundry room. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have them spend $100 and I'm going to put a door there. I think that makes more sense because the laundry room is in the basement. It's ugly. It's not a super modern, updated laundry room. Just changing the flooring and doing some stuff, I don't think is going to make a huge difference anyway. I'd rather invest the money in doing what we did, like opening up that wall, right? Because what are the photos going to showcase first? They're going to show that main living area, the kitchen area, and that's really like, that's what's going to sell the house. And then the bedrooms, we just want them clean and empty. So that's really where we want to focus our dollars. And we also want to be able to showcase that the plumbing all works. So when we first initially got in there, there was more work needed than we realized. And the reason we dropped the price was because the work that we thought we were going to be doing, we thought we'd be doing a lot more updates than we did. I called her and said, all these dollars now need to be allocated to just fix the things that are wrong. You've got plumbing that is totally out of code. All your electrical is out of code. Everything pretty much in this house is leaking. And because of the leaks, there is mold everywhere. So we're going to put your dollars here. And I said, we have two options. We have to double your budget if you want to now make it HGTV, or we're just going to take the budget that we have, put it into fixing things. So now we're not making it as beautiful anymore. We're just fixing stuff. And we're going to list for lower because now we're not giving them that HGTV super updated project or product. And ultimately, I think they're going to net more money by listing at $299 than having invested $100 grand and listing at $359 or $349. So it's not, yes, of course, every seller wants their home to look the most beautiful, but honestly, the flips that make the most money don't look like HGTV because you can over invest in a flip or I'm calling this a flip because it basically is, we basically flip this house with the seller's money. So that's something you get more used to it over time, but I want you guys to be really, really familiar with knowing how to answer that question that seems to intimidate agents a lot, which is, should I invest dollars here and how much am I going to get back? Because you can answer that question and it's all in the data. And it's a lot easier to answer the question than you think. And sometimes telling a client, no, don't put your money here is actually something they really, really, really appreciate. Because any agent could go in and be like, let's remodel everything. That's the easy answer. But it's more specific and more helpful to them to know, okay, I care about your dollars and I'm going to defend your money, just like I'm going to defend your money when I help sell your house. And I'm going to help do it here too. I don't want you spending your dollars here because unless you're going to get $3 to $5 back per dollar, we're not doing it. I don't want you to spend 10 grand updating a bathroom so you get 10 grand back. That's a waste of energy and money and time and effort and everything. So you don't need it to be the most beautiful listing. You need it to be the most profitable listing. So that's kind of what I want to talk about today. But going back, Nate, what do you want to share about your week? I know you wrote an awesome cash offer, which is so exciting. What else happened? You've had a busy week.
Yeah, so a couple of buyers that we've been working with since officially showing started in February, but been working with since really January, finally got their accepted offer on a great little house for them in Menominee Falls. They're so excited. So that is very exciting. It's awesome that they finally are able to get their house and be able to move in there. Yeah, it's been a good process. And then they used our insurance contact, saved hundreds of dollars a month that way. So that was also a nice win. They were very appreciative of having that contact. What else? Appraisal is going to come back today on Depot Street. So looking forward to that. Yeah, then open houses work to get buyers. Because obviously the cash offer written was the guy that I met at the open house. Just said he wanted to buy the house. He had cash offer for it. So wrote the offer, just got the email out for signatures to request or to accept the counter offer. And then we'll be sending that over to the listing agent.
They're going to be so happy.
Yeah.
Okay. I just have to add the reason these sellers in particular are, I told them, I said, there's a reason I'm your listing agent and I'm not subjecting anybody else to your nonsense. When I called them, my mom goes, oh, throw in there that it's contingent upon us buying the campground. And I said, oh, I was so it felt so good to say, you know what? We're not doing that. And Eddie finally just goes, okay. And I said, no, I'm going to explain further. First of all, we never talked about this. You never told me that you wanted the sale of the home contingent upon you purchasing the campground. First of all. Second of all, where did you even get this idea? Oh, John, the campground agent guy said it might be a good idea to throw it in there. There's no throwing it in there. We're already at the point of like, we're about to accept an offer. Now you want me to go back and add a huge contingency on there? Oh, great. When you're going through inspection and we're negotiating, we don't even know if you're going to be buying this house or not. It's all dependent on us buying this campground. Second of all, I said, we negotiated your closing to be before you even buy the campground. So that's physically impossible. That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, you're lucky it's me because you have a listing agent pulling out their hair right now with some of the things that you say. So luckily I was able to shoot him down from that, but I'm like, we are not putting that in there. Are you kidding me? Sellers, man.
That's really funny.
Yeah. And they got their post-close occupancy that they wanted to, and yeah.
It's the perfect offer. And literally no appraisal, post-close occupancy, and closing by August 1st. Like I would have told you it was impossible. So crazy. So God has a plan.
Apparently she went with the right team.
And she's so happy that it's Nate, like, you know, that the agent is Nate. That'll be really cool for her too. So
and I'm gonna make this listing agent's life so hard. Just kidding.
Make me work for my 1%.
They're doing enough of that for you.
No, they're fine. They just, you know how they get when stress happens.
Yeah.
Get excited. Okay, so pricing. I want to show you guys some pricing, just go through some steps, go through any questions you have about pricing, anything you're like confused about, or we'll just want to clarify, and also show you what I do to prepare to price a listing. So is there a property you want to look at that we can tackle together? I know, Nate, you and I have looked at 63rd, so we already have an idea, I think, of what we want to list that for. Otherwise, I do have one.
But yeah.
I'm running into more listings that are starting to look high now for the market. So when I'm doing comps and things, they're coming in under list. The comps are coming in what's currently listed. So like that condo in the 3rd ward was listed at 299.9, so 300, and most of the comps in the area are 260s or 270s, something like that. So I'm working on more of the comp side for the buyer to try to figure that out to see what he could offer, but without, you know.
What do you mean by, so when we look at pricing anything, we don't look at list price, we only look at sold price.
Well, right. But I'm comparing it to the current list. You know what I mean? So I grabbed the comps of what sold in the last year.
Sure.
And then just, you know, looking, because then it's hard because I don't want to go too low under list just to get rejected. You know what I mean?
No, I understand that. The thing I would do, if that ever happens, I go straight to the listing agent and I say, help me understand. I have a buyer who really likes your property. I pulled comps for them and here's what I'm coming up with. Help me sell this condo. What comps did you use to price this listing?
Mm-hmm.
I have no problem saying that because you're doing what you can to help. But if you're saying, hey, everything I'm coming up with is over here, I'd love to write you a full price offer, but I can't find anything to show them. They're going to come back on me and say, nothing sold for 300. Why would I pay 300? What comps did you use to price this? And I'll share those with them. Mm-hmm. That's an easy conversation and a good conversation to have. And then you also learn, did they throw this number out of their ass or did they actually do work? And sometimes they'll send you a comp. Like I've asked this question many times and they'll send me comps from like, you know, a different town, but maybe the same county. Like if we're looking at Pewaukee and they send me this Waukesha house or something, like I've seen people use some really weird comps to do what they're trying to do, their best for their seller and get a price that
Sure. Yeah, right.
that they think would be good for them, but they're using wrong comps.
Yeah. But we know that won't work in the appraisal world, so.
Yeah.
we-
So yeah,
Okay.
asking that question I think is golden. And they'll be happy to get them to you because if they can show you how to get price to X, they're going to do it because it helps them and it helps their seller. So as long as you word it in a way that's just like that.
Yeah,
it's a good
non-confrontational.
Yeah.
Right.
So I do have an upcoming listing appointment that I'm going to be going on, so I can price that one, but I'd rather do one for you guys if you have one. But it's okay if you don't.
I don't have any upcoming listings really. Well, that I mean, I might, but not. I haven't been inside the buildings yet, so I don't know what they look like to give a fair assessment.
Okay, so you want me to pick the address?
Sure.
Let me grab it. All right. This is the address. This is literally all I know. The situation is, this is a high school friend of Sean's who is going through a divorce and they need to sell their house. That is literally all I know. Then Sean sent me this address. So they need a price to understand how they need it for two reasons. One, they're selling. Two, they need the price. They can put it in their MSA and know how much each one is probably going to net when they go through their divorce. So where do we begin? I'll just go right through it.
I'll pull it up on MLS.
There we go.
Find it on the map.
So then we can see
need
the
to-
details of the size and room count and other amenities that we really want to know about, square footage. And then we pull up another screen and start comparing it.
Yeah, so I don't actually know if this is ever sold or not, so I'm just gonna look. There we go, it has. So I see it's here twice. But then I also see one with south and one with not south. So I don't know, honestly, if the south is supposed to be there or not. So I'm gonna look to see if it's the same house.
Those
You
look
grabbed
different
the
houses.
same one.
I think it is the same one.
No, you
Is it?
grabbed the same one. You didn't get one with the south on it.
I know, I'm curious if the one with south is also this. I'm looking at the tax key. It ends in 5011. It's
Oh,
the
it is.
same house.
I didn't realize that tree was in the way. Okay. From the other picture.
Different angles, yeah.
It got moved down. Yeah. Cool.
So I can see they tried selling before they ended up selling it. And it's super easy. Always just look at the MLS number to know which the most recent one is because they're chronological. This is 165, 167. I know this is the most recent. So what do we got? We've got a 3-bed, 2.5 bath, 2.5 attached car garage. Looks like a pretty basic house. We're on a little over an acre. 2,600 square feet. Got a big master. All the bedrooms are on the upper. All the others are on the main. So it's a pretty cookie cutter house, it looks like to me. It's on a cul-de-sac. That's really nice. So an acre on a cul-de-sac. It's good. They bought it in March of 2020.
Perfect.
Okay, so throw some photos, take a peek. Their backyard. This would be a great house to stage.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the thing, like, we'll look as well to see in this neighborhood, like what those like HGTV homes are selling for. This easily could have looked like one, but not really our problem.
Oh,
You
nice.
see that? You see that granite?
That's important.
That's nice. High ceilings when you walk in. Big master, walk in. Master needs some updating, but this is the perfect example. I think we talk about low, mid, and high tier. This is a perfect like mid tier. Like it is so move-in ready. It's clean. It functions. It works.
After that,
But
paint.
there are
Except for that room.
opportunities here. So the way you want to describe this to a buyer, if you're walking them through, there are opportunities to gain equity here. A lot of opportunity, as opposed to what I always say is when I walk into a home that's perfectly updated and nothing needs to be touched at all, like everything is new. What you can say to a buyer in those situations is all the work is done. Keep in mind, you are paying tip top price and your opportunity to gain equity is less than in a home like this. Because there are very simple things you can do here, like paint and decor to make it look better. Nothing wrong with buying perfectly newly updated, but if you have a buyer who kind of walks in, they're like, oh, like this doesn't look like HGTV. I want to be wowed. Well, what is more wowing to you? Opportunity for equity or looking at pretty pictures? Now we can stage and list this all day long and make it look like pretty pictures and sell it for top dollar. That's great. And there will be buyers who buy it. So it depends. There's a different conversation if you're on the list side or if you're on the purchase side of what that's going to, what the benefits are. So, okay, now we're going to open up another MLS field, and I just want to see what's going on in this neighborhood. I don't know Genesee that well. And I also don't know if, what I want to find out is if it's in Genesee, does that make a difference in price versus Wales, which I think is like the next town over. So we're on Highway E and 83. So there's Wales, and Wales is a really upscale neighborhood or small little area. So the homes, like this home in Wales could possibly be like 50% more, but we're gonna look at that. So we're gonna go by 83 and Sunset. So I'm gonna do a quick search. Single family, sold. I hit the date, I just go back a year for now. Let's head on over there. So it's right there in that little corner. Roberts Road, Roberts Court. So I'm gonna kind of look for now, just kind of in this area, these little courts that are all right here. Because if you look, they all kind of have that similar look, and I want to see what I get. I only get 5, so I'm going to expand a little bit. This looks to be another little court area. Anytime you see these little things coming off, those are all courts. So let's just look at that for now. We have 7, so that's good. Sort descending, and our tippy top price. Well, this is not really comparable. So we're not gonna, because when you go literally from 8 to 6, you've got a house that we're gonna kind of get rid of. This is not gonna be comparable. The taxes are double what this house is. We've got 4-bed, 3.5 bath, 3.5 car garage, probably is a newer build. It's just a little different. So we're at 3, 2.5, I think. Yeah. So 3, 2.5, we've got right here, 2,200 square feet, 4,000 in taxes. And I look at the taxes because that gives me an idea about the assessed value. This is a little bit bigger. So this gives me an idea here, this 512. Let's take a peek at it. It's a Tudor style, which is, you know, I don't think it makes a big difference. Built in 1985. This house was built in 1994, so it's about 10 years newer. This is 1.5 acres. Honestly, 1.1, 1.5, I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference in price. You're still in that over an acre mark. You're not 5 acres. It's a nice lot. And we're perfectly at that mid-tier, right? It needs some updating, but it's super move-in ready. There's nothing. This looks very clean, well-maintained. Doesn't look like it's going to have any problems at all. Needs some updated bathrooms, but almost, you know, kind of similar interior that we've got going on here. And then it was on the market 2 days. So that means they most likely got a really good cash offer, because this stops when it goes into pending. So something goes into pending in 2 days when it's cash. That means all contingencies have been satisfied. So we listed at $499 and we ended at $512.5, telling me that maybe there were some concessions, but it says no. So I don't know. Interesting accepted offer price, $512.5. They may have had an accelerator that went up by like $2,500 or $500 or $1,500. Who knows? It honestly might be $2,500 because maybe they made an offer for $510 and then 25 got put onto it. But again, we don't know that for sure, but we can kind of make assumptions here. So $499 and for this house, I think was the perfect list price. So I think that's good. And because real estate is continuing to go up, I think that's a really safe price, most likely, for this one we've got going on here. So I just want to see what some others have sold for. We've got a really similar house here, but it's a 4-bed. 4-bed and way bigger, listed for $469. So they priced this a little low because it's sold for $511. It's on 1.1 acres. I'm actually really surprised that this house sold for $512 and this one sold for $511 because it's so much bigger, but they counted the square footage in the basement on this. If you look, be mindful of that. 2,300 square feet. The other two did not count basement square footage. This one is. So either it has a really nice finished basement or they counted it. It also looks really nice. This is staged. Photos are kind of dark, but I mean, it showed really well. Bathrooms did need updating, but because it's staged, it shows really differently than the other one. It does have a finished basement.
It's amazing what adding a little plant can do for your pictures.
I know. It is pretty crazy. So this one here at $512, I find it interesting that they didn't include any lower level square footage, but a house like this normally would have a finished
with a finished basement. Yeah. So now for Hilltop, I should be including finished square footage in the basement as well, correct?
Yep, that's all finished down there.
Including the laundry room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man.
Be doing those
So we've
measurements
got
tomorrow.
2,200 square feet. I'm just reading the example. Lower level, just waiting for your ideas. Well, that means one thing, it's not finished. I'm impressed that this sold for so much more. But just by looking, low, mid, and high tier price. So let's look at the 625 one, just to get an idea. 4, 3.5. It's 3,600 above grade. The other one's in the 2s. So we obviously know here, no matter how much we update this house on Roberts Court, we're never going to get this high. This is, you know, this is 30% bigger, this house. And it's been really nicely updated. But it's still, you know, got that light oaky color, which a lot of people find to be super outdated. Drop ceiling in the basement. It shows well, but it's not, I would not call this HGTV. I'd call this right in between like mid to high. Because look at that tub. Like, this is an outdated bathroom. It's
Mhm.
very functional, but it's not brand new. And that sold for $625, listed for $624.9. So sold right at list price. So that tells you they got a really good offer, probably right away, because after 2 weeks, the contingencies were satisfied. So what I'm seeing here with Robertsport, we haven't been in it, obviously, but I can go in now confidently and say, okay, I have an idea of what this is probably going to sell for. And I think we're going to be in the low fives, most likely. So you can do a CMA right from MLS. So you take these comps right here and you hit CMA. And actually, I'm going to select all and I'm going to unselect this one because I think this one is going to throw off our numbers because this one was higher because it's a different type of house. Because it's actually really similar square footage to this one, but it's sold for so much more. And it's obvious. I mean, it's a totally different neighborhood even too. It's a different house, right? It's got those executive upscale finishes. So we're not going to throw that in there. If there's ever one that looks really off, take it out, low or high. I'm going to keep full CMA. Next step, you can title it like CMA for XYZ person. You don't have to. So I like to hit this button, auto populate fields from existing listing. So you go in and take the MLS listing 1676243. 1676243 and make sure you hit Metro MLS, then hit submit. Then it fills all this info in there for you. And it's going to take the data and basically interpret it and compare and take the price and kind of come up with different equations for what they think this should be priced at. It's not the end all be all, but it's a tool. Just keep hitting next step. So the low 390, average 518, median 512, high 640. Average days on market 10, average cumulative days on market 28. Average sale to list price 1.02. They were pretty much selling for right at what they were listed for. Recommend 518. So you can take this then and download. And usually when I go to a listing appointment, I don't bring this whole packet because it also prints out in a PDF every single listing that you compared it to. So I think I've got like 6 in addition. But what it does do, which I like, is it's got the home in the front. It's got your picture on it. It's got a nice little map and where the comps are that you're pulling through. And I know this seems like silly for us because we see this all the time, but sellers eat this up. This is data that they've never seen before about their neighborhood. So they think it's so cool. So what I like to do then is I print basically pages 1 through, I keep these. I keep this, I keep this, and I keep this. And then I pretty much stop. So page 1 through 10 is what I bring to the listing because this goes through all of the comps then and what happened, what the list prices were, days on market, the sold date, the sold price, adjusted price, and really gives you good data. So spend time reading this and getting familiar with it and kind of what happened because you think that you know a little bit about this house on Wildberry Lane. They've probably been in it. They know the sellers. They know what happened. So they're going to bring stuff up and you want to make sure that you can speak to it. When they say, oh yeah, Bob and Sue's house down the street, you want to know what they're talking about and say, oh yeah, well actually that one sold in 4 days, but Bob and Sue's house has this, this, and this, and your house doesn't. So you want to be able to speak to that because they're going to ask you, well, why isn't my house not going to sell for 640? Well, here's why. There's things that this house has that your house doesn't, like an extra bedroom, a finished basement. So different things that we can speak to. But one thing I like to do is when I print this off, I like to highlight specific things and make notes because you're not going to remember everything and it doesn't always tell you here. So you may want to highlight this and say, extra bedroom in the basement that's not counted, or, you know, little notes that help you talk about what these comparables are doing in the story that they're telling and why you want to be at your price. I feel like lately it's been an easier conversation with sellers to say, this is the price we're going to list your home at. Most of the time, they just say, okay. As the market shifts and as houses don't sell first weekend on market, it's going to be a bigger objection to go through. Sellers are not just going to say, okay, because they're going to say, I want X for my house. Right now, that conversation isn't happening as much, but it's going to start. And it's just it's an objection handler you need to master, because you need to be able to back up why you're recommending X price. And you know what the data is, right? But you need to be able to communicate it in a way that they understand and feel confident about, so that you just shut that objection off right away. Because if you take an overpriced listing, it always ends in heartbreak for everybody. They're sad, they're mad, they think you're not doing their job. They don't remember the conversation you had at the kitchen table where you told them, if we overprice your listing, it's not going to sell. They don't care. That's gone. There is no I told you so. What, are you going to shove it in their face later? If you sign that contract and you make that agreement and say, I'm going to sell your house for X price, they're now going to hold you to that. So you never want to make a promise that you can't keep. That's why it's okay to say, I'm not listing your house at this price if we don't do this, this, and this. And you're going to lose listings over it. But sometimes it's a listing you don't get that are really the wins. Because if you do end up making promises you know you can't keep, everyone's upset. You waste your time. You're working with a client who is upset with you. They're calling you constantly, asking you why you haven't gotten an offer yet. And what are you going to do? Say, well, Sharon, I told you it wasn't going to sell. Like, that's not going to go over so well. So those conversations will get more and more in depth. So that's why I want to make sure you know how to price something really, really well, because it's easy right now, but it won't be easy forever. And I don't want you to only know how to do this in an easy way. So I like to just write MLS, CMA, Roberts Court. And I put this right in my transaction because I go back to it. Because sometimes you have a listing appointment in January and you don't end up listing the house until August, and you honestly don't remember what comps you brought. So always make sure you pull your old comps and run new comps too, because in a few months, things can change so significantly. Questions, thoughts?
All makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Cool. So then what I like to do is I like to go into RPR, because for a couple reasons. I think that the reports are really pretty, and I like to bring them to appointments, and I like to email them over after the appointment so the buyer or the seller can look through them, because they love this stuff. And I also like to just kind of test myself and see if I priced it correctly. And this actually says Waukesha, so that's interesting. So they've got it at 5011, but I mean, right there, low fives. I think we're still very, very on par. But what's interesting is they don't have, you can make adjustments and then make this updated. So if you hit refine value, what was it, 1994?
Yes.
It doesn't have any of the basic info. 2665, 265. So then hit apply. It didn't change our value at all. But if I went like this, that's weird.
Yeah.
But you can play with it and see, like, okay, it's a really hot neighborhood. Now what? Now we're at 517. And it is a hot neighborhood. This area, people really, really like it. So right there, I mean, we can pretty much say, unless this home is like in tippy top shape, which I don't anticipate it to be, I think a safe list price probably is going to be between $499 and $509. And the conversation I'm going to have is going to be, well, where do you want to end up? What's important to you? Is a quick sale important? You know, what are the things? And I kind of have an idea of what's going to be important to them, but I don't know for sure. So now I'm going to hit create report. And I'm going to hit seller's report, but there's so many. You guys could even play with this, like with your own house, just to get familiar with what it says and the data that it gives you, but it gives you so much information. It's really, really helpful. And when the doorbell rings, that's when you know your report is ready. But really what we're doing here, like I said, we're not coming up with an opinion. Pricing a listing is just interpreting data. That's what it is. You're seeing what's going on in the neighborhood. Now I know, I feel armed with information that if that seller in a meeting goes, I think we can get 600 for my house, I feel good that I can explain why we shouldn't do that. And my comment to them is always, the market is strong and smart enough, and most people have really smart buyer agents, that if this house is supposed to sell for 600, it will. But I'm still going to price it based on historical data in the neighborhood to best set you up for success. But if someone truly feels that this house is worth 600, they're going to offer 600. But if we go in at 600, now we're going to get no offers, because people are going to be looking at me and saying, Morgan, what data did you use to come up with this price? And now I'm going to have to explain to them how I misrepresented the price of your home and explain to you why we're not getting any offers. So those are conversations you're going to have when somebody comes up with a crazy price. But instead of going like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to answer this, you can feel really solid and confident in the data that you're bringing and what you're telling them. There's nothing better in an appointment than really feeling good about the data that you have and knowing that you have the right answer, instead of feeling like you're on a rocky foundation. That's never fun. Not a fun situation to be in. Any questions? Feel good about pricing? Cool. I think it's one of the most fun parts of all of it, like getting it ready, finding out the information, because especially right now, but it's typically fun. I mean, these people bought the house 2 years ago and they have like 150 grand of equity. It's pretty crazy. But I'm also going to take this, again, I don't print this entire thing. I might print like a few pages of it that I think are important, but rarely will I take a 68-page report to a listing appointment. But what I will do is I'll tell them that this report is bigger, and then I'll email it to them after the listing appointment, and then they can go through it. Support.
I don't recommend printing the whole thing either. Since I
mean, no, I think emailing it completely suffices, and then they get to see it and they can look through it on their own time. Cool. Okay. Well, we are at 11:25. Next week, I am excited to look through both of your packets.
Try to add some personal touches so it's not just copy paste.
Oh, mine will be done. I totally forgot about it. So I remembered it twice and I'm like, oh, I'll do that tomorrow. Nice work.
That tomorrow.
Back to open houses. What do we know anything about the Kenilworth, McKenna's Kenilworth? I know it's an active Airbnb still, right? I'm wondering if she can, or if we can do some